Hi, this is Lauren Randolph with My Hotel Wedding, and I want to welcome you back to My Hotel Wedding Happy Hour. I have my glass of white wine here, and I'm ready to talk with you all about venues and our topic, which is the must-ask questions for our hotels and venues tonight. And I just want to let you know, too, before I get started, that if you have any questions during this broadcast, and we'll also check after the broadcast for future happy hours, put any questions in the comments section of the YouTube live streaming page, or feel free to email us at info@myhotelwedding.com. So thank you for joining in today. I have a couple of things I want to share with you. We have this really great resource, which is called our My Hotel Wedding Checklist and Questionnaire. You can find it on our website. It's a free download on myhotelwedding.com. And here you'll find a lot of great questions to start off with when you're making initial calls to your venues, and as well as when you're making that first visit. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of items to start off with. So first and foremost, if you have a particular wedding date, you want to make sure that that venue or hotel has that wedding date available. Another great question to ask is if a wedding planner is required, as this directly affects your budget, and it's good to know whether or not a wedding planner is required. Another question that's always great to ask is if you can use your own vendors, because many times you have to choose off of a particular vendor list at certain venues. So it's good to know what flexibility you have or don't have going into booking that hotel or venue. Some of the other questions I like to ask on the first visit is about if there's a complimentary room on the wedding night, especially if you're having a hotel wedding, and then a place for the groom to get dressed in and change. And then also a good one to ask is your maximum capacity for the spaces you're looking at, because you never know when your guest list can go up or go down, and you might have additional guests, so you want to know where you max out at. And then another one is how much are vendor meals at the venue? Because vendor meals, again, directly affect your budget. It's a really great question to ask and know up front, because it's something that a lot of times gets forgotten when you're getting estimates from your hotels and venues. So moving on, a couple of other thoughts that I really wanted to highlight with you about wedding venues are deposits. So when you sign a contract with a venue, you'll notice that you owe a deposit upfront at the time of signing. But you also want to know, what is your payment plan? When are the rest of your deposits due? Can you break them up to smaller payments over a longer course of time? And know that most venues and even vendors will want full payment prior to your wedding happening. So it's something to prepare for, whether you're paying by check, you want to give enough time for that check to clear, or by credit card. So that's kind of one of those things and questions that I think is good to know about upfront, so you can plan accordingly when booking your venue. Just gonna have a little sip for happy hour. So there are a lot of hidden costs and extra costs that can come up when booking your venue. And I just wanted to go over some of those as well too, so you're sure to ask about them and check those things off before you sign the dotted line. Because again, we want to make sure, or I want to make sure, that upfront you know everything you're getting into when you're booking a hotel or venue. So some of the hidden costs that I've found in my experience will be permitting. So some venues require permits in order to have trucks load in or load out, or in order for cars or parking. So that's an important thing to ask about and look into. Extra time for setup. Now, this is a big one. So when you have a large setup and you know that you're going to need a space or a ballroom a large amount ahead of time, then you want to make sure that you lock that in right away, because a lot of times hotels and venues want to maximize their revenue. So they could possibly book a luncheon, an event the next day, kind of some endless possibilities, or a seminar. So if you know you need an all-day setup, it is worth going in and paying the additional rental cost to make sure you have enough time for setup. If you don't have a really large setup and you're using mostly hotel items, no hotels can turn a room super fast, and that's what they're skilled at and that's what they're good at. Just kind of go in knowing when you can get into the room and when you have to be out by. And a lot of this goes into knowing your setup and load-in times, especially during busy times of year. And make sure that it's written into your contract. You really want to make sure that you know when you can get into the ballroom. If you've negotiated a specific time, write that into your contract. Another thing that I mentioned on the checklist were vendor meals. And again, I want to reiterate the importance of budgeting for vendor meals, as that can be an additional cost that will really add up and add to your budget. Power is another important item that you want to watch out for, because some venues, less and less these days though, but I want to highlight it just to be aware that they can charge you for additional power that needs to be pulled or used. So if you have a really big band, a lot of sound, a lot of lighting, then you want to make sure that you are accounting for any extra power that a venue could be charging you for those costs. So another item that you really want to watch out for before signing the contract with your venue and hotel is your space that you're contracting. So if you have an outdoor ceremony and you're in a place like Seattle or on the East Coast where weather can be up and down, even in California these days, you want to know what you're getting. So if you have an outdoor ceremony space, is there a backup space available in case there's rain? Are they holding that for you? Or do you have to pay extra to contract for that space? Can you negotiate that into your contract to have a backup space? Honestly, there should always be a backup. Or is tenting your only option based on the number of guests you have? And if tenting is your only option, you want to know how much that costs, because that can really add up and really affect your budget. So if you're planning for an outdoor wedding ceremony, make sure that you're taking into account any additional cost for tenting or for a backup space for your ceremony if it's outdoors. Another question, again, before signing the contract, is a tasting for the food and beverage. And I know not all venues and caterers do this, but they should. Every hotel should offer you the option to have a tasting, to try the meal, and choose the meal for your wedding day, as well as any caterer at an outside venue should give you that option to have a tasting as well too, because you want to know what kind of food you're having and what you'll be serving your guests. And it's also part of the wedding planning experience. Something that I also think and I truly believe should be included for all large weddings, especially held at hotels, is a complimentary guest room on the wedding night for you and your soon-to-be spouse. This is something where you are investing a lot of money into this venue and location, and you are hosting guests and food and beverage, and there's guest rooms involved. So you really do deserve a complimentary room on your wedding night. And this is something that you should hardline negotiate into your contract when you're booking your venue. And if you can, and depending on your spend, I would also request for a day use changing room for the groom or your fiance. So a lot of times we think about the bride and her getting ready and the hair and makeup, and the groom gets forgotten. But I think it's really important as you're going into these negotiations and you're signing a contract to also remember that your fiance needs a space for them to get ready in as well too. So think about negotiating that space and having that written in as part of your contract. And just a bit of advice for anybody making negotiations or signing a venue or hotel contract: anything that you've negotiated on should be clearly outlined in writing in your contract before you sign it. So you may have an email exchange where a catering manager or a venue manager is guaranteed you certain things, but you want to make sure that you have all of that in writing so you're protected and so it's solidified and nobody can question. Because a lot of times there can be high turnover at a lot of these places, and the person you've been working with for 6 months all of a sudden has left and you're working with somebody else, and they're saying, oh, well, no, we would never give that away. And if you have it written into the contract, you've kind of CYA, covered your arse. So that's kind of another thing that I like to highlight when it comes to venues and hotels and negotiations. So don't think we've gotten any questions yet, but that kind of covers everything that I think is really important when it comes to knowing what to ask and what to go through when booking your wedding. I would say if you have or you want more detailed information, do download our free wedding checklist on myhotelwedding.com. I think that's a really great resource. We also have our ebook available as well too on Amazon, which goes into more detail on different questions to ask your venue. Let's see, I just want to share for next time a few things we have. So I want to thank you all for joining our first My Hotel Wedding Happy Hour back. I want to remind you that our site is a great resource for searching for hotels for your wedding day. You'll see that we have capacities for the hotels and the different per person budgets. So it makes it really easy for you to send your wedding requests with no commitment through our website. And we also want your feedback because I want to make My Hotel Wedding a better site for all of you out there. And you can easily give us your feedback by completing a short 2-question survey we have going on right now. And there'll be a link up on the site tomorrow where you're able to complete the survey and be entered to win a $25 Visa gift card. And I also want to reiterate that we're here as a resource, or I'm here as a resource for you. So I'd love for you to email me any topics or wedding planning questions that you have that you want to know more about. So next week, we'll be going into some of my favorite wedding day details. And if you have missed anything today, remember that this is living on our YouTube page. It'll be streaming live every week in case you can't make it next Monday. But check us out and let me know any questions that you have. And thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for joining us at myhotelwedding.com, and happy Monday. Cheers.